This is the Jeopardy! Students UN Tournament. Here are today's contestants. From the University of British Columbia is a top environmental studies student. From Delta, BC, please welcome Alicia Plett. From Harvard University is an economics major. From Boston, Mass, here's Scott Holcomb. A student studying business at the University from Waterloo. From Toronto, here's Amrit Bains. She is our winner from the last two tournaments. From Simon Fraser University, here's Kimberlyn Mascaro. And here's our host, Alex Trebek.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to tonight's special edition of Jeopardy! Tonight we have the Student UN Tournament. All the contestants will be explaining their answers this evening.
These are today's categories.
The $200 question is, what is the international trading system and how does it contrast with the basic taxation principle?
The basic taxation principle is, the more you make, the more you pay. In the international trading system, the lower a country's average income, the higher the tariffs are. Under this system, developing countries exporting to richer countries face tariffs 3 to 4 times more than what developed countries charge between each other.
The $400 question is, what is the preferential trade scheme and why is it largely unsuccessful?
This initiative, set out by developed countries, provides a duty-free, quota-free market for developing countries. Only a small amount of goods are imported through this process because goods do not originate in the same place. Under this system, African exporters cannot use Indian fabrics to make goods.
The $600 question is, how do agricultural subsidies hamper the development of the agriculture sector in developing countries?
Agriculture subsidies are types of aid given by developing countries to help poorer countries invest in agriculture. Unfortunately, this allows richer countries to dominate the market and control world market prices. Because of this, developing countries may lose money that could be made in agriculture if they could set their own prices.
The $800 question is, what should the goal of industrial policy be?
Industrial policy should be used to create conditions for countries to get technology to raise productivity and maximize the advantages of international trade. Instead, the trade-related investment measures disallows tools which maximize the benefit of foreign investment. Technology transfer, local employment, research and development were tools many strong Asian economies used to develop. Example, China and Japan.
The $1,000 question, how does the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights encourage development?
In the TRIPS agreement, it states that countries cannot prevent measures that are to protect the health of the public. Because of international pressure, pharmaceutical companies have lowered prices for drugs. This promotes public health and leaves money that can be used for other economic ventures.
The question for $200 is, what is the commodity market?
A commodity market is a market that's based off raw product exchange through standardized contracts.
The question for $400 is, why doesn't everyone try to help developing countries in regards to capacity building?
They have. Aid is generated under the banner of trade-related technical assistance and capacity building to help build capacity to overcome restraints on exports. $2.1 billion has since been generated.
The question for $600 is, how does the coffee trade relate to the poverty rate in Nicaragua?
20 million households in Africa are affected by the coffee trade and its unfavorable distribution of wealth. From 1998 to 2001, the poverty rate in Nicaragua went up for coffee-producing households and the school enrollment went down. For non-coffee producing households, the opposite happened.
The question for $800 is, how have the economics of coffee changed recently?
Coffee's revenue has dipped from $12 billion to $5.5 billion. $200 per household was lost, which means that less to health care and education. Every $1 of coffee gets to the grower less than 1 cent.
$1,000 question is, how are supermarkets transforming the global economy?
Supermarkets control a large amount of the world's global grocery sales. Walmart buys from up to 65,000 sources. The farmers involved get large profits but must adhere to strict guidelines. The supermarkets therefore act as gatekeepers. Some guidelines include rapid delivery, high quality, safe food production, all with intense price pressure.
The $200 question is, what is specialization through trade?
Specialization is basically to concentrate your efforts on one good and trade within the country that is specialized in another. This leads to better outcomes for both countries.
The $400 question is, what is import liberalization and when is it useful?
Import liberalization is to open up for trade by decreasing tariffs, but is only useful with growth already occurring in a country. It is not a source of growth.
The $600 question is, how can rapid growth increase inequality and poverty?
When a large number of jobs created are predominantly for skilled or educated workers, many groups are left in poverty or without a job.
The $800 question is, what are the risks of integration into world markets?
Well, Alex, large sectors of production can be wiped out due to external competition from China, or other countries such as China, to smaller garment exports of Nepal or Bangladesh. This is usually because countries like China can produce more effectively at cheaper rates.
The $1,000 question is, what does export regulation not consider?
Export regulation doesn't consider environmental costs, Alex. Increasing exports is not just a number, but can lead to problems with the environment. An example of this is the lower yields of shrimp now because Bangladesh decided to increase exports of shrimp by 30%.
For $200, what does the Doha Round aim to do?
The Doha Round aims to bring international trade rules and domestic policies up to par with the developed countries' development pledges.
Question for $400. What is globalization, and give an example?
Globalization is the process of international integration. An example of globalization is the manufacturing of the Xbox. The Xbox has 11 production sites, including the Philippines and China. The graphic processors are made by a US company in Taiwan. The hard drive is produced in Ireland but assembled in China, and the DVD-ROM is manufactured in Indonesia and finally assembled in China.
The $600 question is, what accounts for 1/4 of world income and 1/3 of sub-Saharan Africa income? The $200 question is, what is the purpose of the Doha Round and why has it been wasted?
The Doha Round provides an opportunity to start aligning multilateral trade rules with the commitment to human development and the Millennium Development Goals. The opportunity has been wasted because of an unbalanced agenda pursued by rich countries and failures to tackle agricultural subsidies.
The $400 question is, why does the emergence of new trading structures pose threats to more equitable trade in agriculture?
The emergence of new trading structures pose threats to more equitable trade in agriculture because the supermarket chains are the new gatekeepers to agricultural markets in rich countries. This links produce in developing countries to consumerism in rich countries, and smaller farms are excluded by the purchasing practice of some supermarkets.
The $600 question is, how do we strengthen the connection between development and trade?
The Doha Round can strengthen the connection between development and trade by building credibility and legitimacy and rule-based trading system.
The $1,000 question is, what are the key benchmarks for assessing outcome of the Doha Round?
The key benchmarks are agricultural support. Developing countries set tariffs no more than twice the level of the average tariffs of 5 to 6%. Protection of policy space for human development. A large commitment to avoid WTO plus arrangement and regional trade agreements, and refocusing of service negotiations on temporary movements of labor.
And everybody's totals for this evening are